Hey y'all, it's Mental Health Awareness Month and we have a bomb episode waiting on you with Richard Rice, Eva Melton, and Mechelle Frazier from Work in Progress Counseling. Go ahead and tune in. Hello everybody, welcome back to Communal Expressions. This is Eva. I'm in the studio today with Richard Rice. Hey Richard.
Hello Eva, how are you?
Good, how are you today?
I'm good.
It's good to hear your voice.
Yeah, it's good to be back on Communal Expressions. It's been a while since I've been on here with you, but it's good to be back.
Yeah. So today, everybody, it is Mental Health Awareness Month. We just came out of last month, which was Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And so we have come right up on Mental Health Awareness Month, which is a good topic for us to discuss on Communal Expressions since our audience is typically Black. We target for this podcast to reach our Black listeners. And this tends to be a topic that has a stigma associated with it. So the more we talk about that are issues for us, the more we can begin to see different perspectives and also see places where we can get the refuge and the help that we need. So for that reason, we have Mrs. Mechelle Frazier from Work in Progress Counseling. Mechelle, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing awesome. So before we get started, I would love for you to tell our listeners who you are.
Okay, I am Mechelle Frazier. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I work for Work in Progress Counseling. So what I do is provide individual therapy. I also do group, work with couples, also work with children and adolescents, just tackling different health issues from grief to anxiety to depression to bipolar disorder.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot. And so, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and, there's such a stigma that's associated with mental health in the African-American community, the Black community. Can you speak to why you think that is?
A lot of times I think, number one, a lot of us tend to rely on like faith-based means to cope with different things, which is there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I think there's just a stigma of, if you need to go and talk to somebody, if you can't just be tough and just shake it off, then there's that stigma of being labeled as crazy or there's something wrong with you, which is unfortunate because a lot of times we don't get the help that we need because of that stigma.
Wow. Richard, I know that you serve, as an attorney in Birmingham. Have you seen any of this stigma, or, have you been able to refer somebody to counseling and they kind of come back with a faith-based response? What have you seen as far as this being a stigma for us?
Yeah, I think so. It's a really big stigma in our community. I think especially with black males, men, and teenagers, I often have the opportunity to represent individuals who have experienced some type of racism, whether it be in the workplace or whether it be in school or other settings like that. And that's one of the first things I typically do is try to refer my clients to some type of mental health treatment or counseling or something along those lines. And, they're reluctant to do it, and I think but for the fact that, I'm representing them and I'm telling them that it's something that they need to do, I don't know that they would do it. And I really have to be creative sometimes in convincing them to move forward with counseling.
Can I piggyback off of that really quickly?
Yes.
And I agree with Richard. I'm getting a lot more clients, male and female African Americans, who are dealing with a lot of stress as it relates to being in the workplace, dealing with microaggressions and racial things that are happening to them, and just trying to maintain and keep their cool. And a lot of times, by the time they've gotten to me, it's gotten to a breaking point. Whereas if they had come in or listened to someone like Richard sooner, it could kind of help or balance them out. And it's really shocking. I think a lot of it has to do with the climate that we're dealing with and a lot more people being emboldened to say and do certain things, but I am seeing a lot more people who are dealing with work stress and microaggressions.
Wow. And I definitely can see that. I would just say, for me, from a pastoral standpoint, I interact with people. They see me every week. And sometimes I realize, just from some symptoms that I may see, that there's something deeper going on. And I realize it may take them a much longer time to open up to me than it would be if they were talking to a third party that they didn't see every week. What I find is people tend to think that once they tell me something, I could bring up a sermon that's a year later, they still think that I'm somehow framing that sermon around them. And so I think, just for their own health and spiritual growth, that a third party that they only have to see when they go to a particular space, they're not going to have to see that person in church. They're not have to see them, unless they are literally trying to go and seek therapy, that piece of a third party that has no interest in any area of your life. Because sometimes we don't even know the interest that we carry when we're talking to people. But there's sometimes I get to that fourth or fifth session and I'm just kind of like, there's something deeper, but you don't want to tell me because you see me as spiritual authority. And a lot of times that kind of makes people angry. Like, no, this is your job, but I still feel like I know that somebody who does this all day, every day, who has a certain level of training can help you quicker than I can, because you're hiding a part of who you are, the reality of where you are right now. And if you can't be truthful about what you're dealing with, without feeling like there's some scripture going to come back on you, you'll never get healing. So I really appreciate you mentioning that faith-based piece. So I want to talk a little bit about grief. Are you having clients that come in from the grief standpoint that, a lot of times in the church, we just tell people to pray about it. It's going to get better in time. We don't really handle grief correctly. But have you seen issues around that?
I have, and it's the extent and the amount of grief, which everybody, there are some things that's the norm. Everybody's going to be sad and have times where they cry and times where they're okay. It's not something that goes away. It's a cycle. But if your only coping skill is just the one thing, let's say going to church or prayer, which that's great. Going to counseling can kind of help you with other coping skills, especially depending on how you lost a loved one. There may be trauma around that, or whether that person suffered for a long time, or whether they were the victim of a violent crime. There's a lot of ins and outs to where, a lot of times you go to church, but you still can't get control of those thoughts that keep you spiraling in that grief. And sometimes it's best to go to a third party that can help you process that grief, maybe talk about some guilt feelings that you may have surrounding what happened to the loved one, or let go of some of the trauma. If that person caused you trauma in your past, how to let go of that. But a lot of times we may not just get that if we're just going to church or just praying, or that family member may be a member of that church. If it's a long time family church, you may not be comfortable sharing certain things about that family member that you're trying to process. So like you say, going to a third party, a neutral party of someone who's going to keep things confidential can be a great help sometimes.
Richard, do you have any particular questions for Mechelle?
Well, yeah, I guess one of my questions would be, what are some of the early signs? You just talked about people kind of waiting until these type of issues are at a crisis point, but what are some of the things that people can look for if they're dealing with microaggressions in the workplace, or maybe they're having issues at home or financial issues? Like, what are some of the symptoms that you can identify that maybe indicate that you should seek counseling?
I guess as far as with the microaggressions, if it's to the point where it's daily and ongoing, a lot of times, because I feel like all of us to some degree have dealt with it, if it's not something that you can process and move past, if it's starting to interfere with your daily function, if it's starting to interfere with your ability to be able to get along with people on the job, or to be able to adequately do your job, that's the time when you need to seek counsel, go see a therapist, especially if you're in a position to where it may not be the optimal time for you to either change jobs or move to a different department. There, you may not have the space to maneuver like you want to. It's always best to come and talk to somebody.
Okay. Well, that's good, because that's one of the things that we see sometimes is that, I don't know if folks really know what those early indicators are. And it seems like, in terms from a mental and emotional standpoint, we have to provide maintenance to our body, just like we do for other physical needs. And I don't know if that's something that we really have been educated on in our community.
I think there is a lack of education with that as far as treating the mind. Even there's a big stigma on taking medications to help you with certain things. Like, I wouldn't dare tell somebody with type 2 diabetes who takes insulin, just pray. You don't need that medication, whereas the brain is an organ just like your pancreas or your lungs. I wouldn't tell an asthma person, pray about that. Don't take your breathing treatment. And I wouldn't tell a person who maybe takes medication for bipolar disorder or for anxiety, hey, just pray. It's going to be all right. Yes, that can be one of the tools in your arsenal, but also consider maybe medication. Consider learning coping skills, deep breathing, yoga, meditation, any of those type of things to kind of help you keep that balance.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to talk about that I have noticed, Mechelle, was that most of the times sometimes when I refer somebody to therapy, I may give them a card. Sometimes I give them more than one so they can go. And I always ask them to come back, and just kind of, how do they feel about the first session, to see if that was a good fit for them. But what are some things they should be looking for because we know all therapists aren't the same and we are not all the same. What are some things they should be looking for to kind of get that confirmation, like this is a good fit for me?
I think what they should look for is a therapist that incorporates their goals into their treatment plan. It may be all well and good for me to draft up a plan for you for therapy that I think will benefit you to help you deal with things. But if it's not something that you want or that's realistic for you, you're not going to get anything out of it. They also need to be looking for someone that's sensitive of their culture, of their religious beliefs, and who would try to incorporate some of that into therapy. I think a lot of times, a lot of African Americans, we don't go to counseling is because we may be uncomfortable sitting across from someone who doesn't look like us. So not only do I have to take the time to explain certain cultural things to you, then I've got to talk about my problems and worry about if you're judging me, is this weird to you? Are you going to discriminate against me because of it? Just someone who's sensitive to their culture, religion, who incorporates their goals into the therapy.
That's awesome, because I definitely believe that Black folk need Black therapists. I definitely believe that.
Yes.
We need Black therapists. I don't have time to be trying to explain to you, some things that just come inherent to us. So here's my next question. Many people equate therapy to medication. Can you respond to that?
A lot of times people think that sometimes just talking about things is beneficial to a person. It could be things they've held in for 20 and 30 years and never breathe it out loud. Some clients don't want to be fixed. Some clients just want to come in to talk, just to say that this is what happened to me, this is what I saw, and it's real. Because a lot of the times they may have dealt with something and a person may be like, that didn't happen, or I don't believe you. A lot of times they just want to be believed. So talking about it, learning coping skills, thinking about your thoughts, taking control of negative thinking. A lot of times that may be something that a person needs, learning a healthier way to communicate. If I'm dealing with somebody with anger management, they don't need medication. They just need to learn ways to communicate and problem solve. And some people are never taught that. But we kind of take it for granted because a lot of us are taught that, of how to talk things out or how to communicate. I may come from a family where we scream and holler at each other, but that's not working in my relationship, or that's not going to work on my job. So I have to learn a new way to kind of communicate and deal with things.
Wow. Wow. That was good. That was really good. Richard, do you have any more questions for Mechelle?
Well, I guess one of my last questions would be, what are some of the most common issues that you see in terms of when you're teaching people these type of techniques to cope or to be able to deal with these type of stressors? What are some of the most common tips that you give individuals in those situations?
A lot of times I have to practice with them to stop and think before they react. Process the situation, check your perception to make sure that the way you perceive it is what the other person actually meant. I think a lot of times some of us are quick to quote unquote pop off or be on the defensive. So it's really getting the other person. It's really hard to get them into the practice of doing things a new way. It feels foreign to them, and sometimes they give up because they're like, well, I can't do this, or, that's just not me. I gotta be real. I can't, I have to let them know. I can't let myself be disrespected. So a lot of times just showing them is not letting yourself be disrespected, but learning a better way to maneuver in your environment to get the best outcome for yourself.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I mean, I do see that happening quite a bit in terms of in our community where you see a lot of microaggressions, or you never know kind of what that final straw will be, because individuals are trying to protect their reputation, or they want to be respected in certain situations, and some small event can be blown out of proportion, and
yes,
really taken to another level. That's something that is very common.
Right.
Definitely.
Because I've had plenty of times where I've had to refer certain clients. Like, I think you do need to talk to a lawyer because they know the system. They may know how HR and employment laws work, and in ways that you're being violated, there are legal recourses. So, I do have to tell them, hey, it's time for you to bring a lawyer into this, let them know what's going on, and so they can give you that I can help you cope, but as far as the legal advice, they can kind of consult with you on the way to protect yourself based on different codes or different laws and regulations and where you work. So, yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, thank you. That's good information. I definitely think that this is something that's going to have a positive impact. And a big part of what I do as a lawyer is to just try to spread general information, because a lot of times, I always say you can only enforce those rights that you're aware of. And I think sometimes we just put so much pressure on ourselves in the Black community to, be self-sufficient and to be independent.
Absolutely.
We really don't even appreciate the fact that if we just ask for a little bit of help, how that can have a multiplier effect on the quality of our lives. So it's important. I appreciate you taking time to put this information out there.
No problem.
Can you tell our listeners, if they heard you and they want more information about Work in Progress or how to find you, what's the best way for them to find you all?
Okay, we're on Facebook, Work in Progress. We have a website, www.workinprogresscounseling.com. They can also call the office. The number here is 205-994-4563. There's always, we try to get you in within 2 or 3 days. We don't have you waiting weeks and weeks and weeks. And most of our pretty much just about all of our counselors are African American or people of color, which is rare for a lot of places. We're licensed and all of that. So there's pretty much, if you can't get with me or you can't get with Cherie, there are so many people here who can help you with your needs. And we have an office in Coleman, Birmingham, and Tuscaloosa.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, do you all have any male counselors, therapists?
We do have a male therapist. He's at our Tuscaloosa location.
Okay. Well, we have enjoyed talking to you on today. We just thank you for you all, Work in Progress, for taking time to just talk to us about mental health awareness month. And we just hope that we can talk to you guys a lot more. You know, I know it's been a long time since we last talked to you, but
yeah,
we appreciate you all making time for us. I am so grateful, and I pray that you have a good day.
Thank you.